for joining us today. This special edition is brought to you by Grace Advent Ministry, located here in Lilburn, Georgia. I'm so happy that we are here with you again. Thank you for joining. For those of you who are watching via Facebook, thank you. YouTube, thank you. And of course, my Periscope peeps, thank you very, very much. We appreciate everything you do. Every time you make a sacrifice to be here and supporting what we do here, and I really appreciate that. Enough love to all of you who are tuning in. This morning, I told you that we would be having two special guests. Thank you. We'll be having two special guests, and I'm delighted, without even further ado, to welcome in studio Edward and Debbie Smith. Lois, give them a hand clap there whenever you get back. Edward and Debbie Smith. And I want to read a little bio I have for them because I don't want to mess it up. And I'm getting older now, so I'm not able to retain everything and spit it out verbatimly. So, hand clap, good. Yeah. So I have this bio prepared to tell you a little bit about my guests in studio, live and direct right now. By the way, for those of you who are watching, please click like and share this video right now with somebody. I promise you, you're going to be blessed. I'm telling you, Eddie and Debbie Smith is in the house. You don't want to miss this. This is going to be a special thing. You're never going to forget this. So you want to tell somebody about it right now. Do me a favor, call up a friend. Let them know that this is a special edition of the Bible study program. Eddie and Debbie Smith is with us live. Click, like, and share. You will never regret it. I promise you. All right. Once again, welcome everybody. You are watching a special edition of Words from the Cross Bible Study, brought to you by Grace Advent Ministry. All right. So let me read a little bit about them and what they do. I think that is key, and it's important for you guys to know. Edward and Debbie Smith are certified. Let me say this again: certified family life educators through the National Council on Family Relations, certified through the North American Division of Seventh-day Adventists, and through the Prepare Enrich to conduct Enrich to conduct premarital and marital counseling. The Smiths are Amazon's best-selling authors with 3 published books. I tell you, they ain't no pian. Right? 3 published books, and they host a weekly Facebook live program called Meet the Smith. Y'all gotta check it out. I had something I want to hook y'all up with, it just didn't work. Entitled Meet the Smith. All right. Edward and Debbie travels globally to facilitate workshops, retreats, and conferences because of their passion to see families thrive. Edward and Debbie are best friends. They enjoy meeting and connecting with others, and truly are enthusiastic people. They are very enthusiastic people about helping others become relationally or relationship strong. I am so happy to welcome live and direct for the first time in studio, Eddie and Debbie Smith. Give them another round of applause, please. Wow. It's been a long time coming.
Yes, sir.
I have dreamed of this day. We have talked about this day for so much, Eddie and I. And by the way, Eddie and I go way back. I don't want to start to tell you how far we go back.
Just from teenagers, that's all. Teenagers, that's all.
We go way back. Yeah. I mean, the friendship has spanned well over, I think, 15, 20 years, more than 20
More than 20 years. Brother, we know each other from Jamaica.
There you go, yeah.
I've been in America for 33 now.
Wow, so well beyond 30 years
Yeah.
I've known him. And I met Debbie when I was in New Jersey. And she's one of the most, I don't know, just complete person I've ever met. Very enthusiastic, intuitive. I've learned recently that she's very calculating. She listens. But when she gets going, trust me, you're in for a treat. Okay? And I'm sure you'll want to meet. And you will see her smiling teeth. All right, let's go on. Let's go on. All right, so they're here with us today to kind of bond with us and to be with Lois and myself, and most of all, to talk to you guys a little bit. As you know, the format of our program is what we talk about in the morning, we kind of stretch it out into the afternoon. So this morning, we were talking about, anybody remember the topic? We were talking about his leadership. And so we're gonna import that right now, and we're gonna start a conversation about leadership in relationship and the home, right? We're gonna talk about that today. And so that's what I have brought them here today. I don't want to do a lot of talking. I'm gonna be asking them a lot of questions because I want them to do the talking. So we're gonna talk about leadership in relationships and leadership in the home. If you have any questions for them, please, you all know how we do. You will send in the questions. Lois will relay them to us, and they will answer the questions. So I hope that you guys will have questions to ask them. All right, so we were talking this morning, Eddie and Debbie, about Herod and his leadership over Judea at the time, his leadership over his national family, his leadership over his household, because I do believe that the way Herod led in terms of nationally, it's quite possible that he was a tyrant in his home, basically.
Right.
And so we talked about how he led Mary and Joseph and how that was so disastrous for them, and it was very uncomfortable, his leadership. And so we wanted to spread that out a little bit and take that into the concept of leadership in relationships. And so I want to read something before I start to ask them my very first question. I think an important part of healthy relationship is playing to each other's strengths. Someone once said, letting a man lead is about him taking specific role in a partnership, and this requires trust. Being a good leader means being clear and reliable. So Eddie and Debbie, let's talk about this idea of leadership. I know you guys do a lot of counseling, you guys do a lot of seminars, and you have probably met this idea of leadership several times. What are you guys' thoughts on leadership in relationship? Debbie, let me ask you first. As the woman, how do you see leadership in a relationship, or what it needs to look like from a woman's perspective of good leadership? Herod was a tyrant. He was not a good leader. So for you as women, and speaking for women, how do you see leadership in a relationship?
Yeah, so much of leadership in a marriage has to do with trust. Can I trust you? Can I trust you to provide for me? Can I trust you to take care of me? Can I trust that you're going to do what you say you're going to do? One of the things that I talk about, especially with women and wives, when we talk about leadership and submission, because you cannot talk about leadership in a marriage without talking about submission. And a lot of women have an issue with submission. We hate that word.
Why?
Well, because I think it has such a negative connotation. It's not that the word itself is negative. God would never ask us to do anything that's negative. However, society has turned this word into, that if you submit to your husband, you're weak. You know, you have no power. No one wants to feel weak, insignificant, and without any power. So what I try to say to my women is submit as if you're submitting to God. And trust God more than you trust your husband. Because your husband, no matter how much you trust him, he's going to fail you because he's human. But if you trust God more and you believe what God says more than anything else, you'll be okay. Because you realize that that man is accountable to God. Ultimately, he's accountable to God. And submission means we can kind of duck out of the way and let God deal with him. Because he's the one that ultimately has to answer to God. So leadership to me is all about trust. I have to trust my husband, but I have to trust God even more than I trust him.
Wow, Eddie?
Well, in order for you to want to take on any leadership role, especially in the home, you know, you have to be a submissive person. You know, you have to be what the Bible refers to as a servant leader, right? You have to understand what it looks like to serve first before you can lead. And once, because here's what it is: in order for you to lead your spouse, you have to be in connection with God, right? God is the blueprint for relationship, as we were talking about earlier, and so. If I were to know Debbie for the next 5 million years, right, I will never know everything about her, right? Because Deb is God's blueprint. And in order for me to build a foundation that God, or build a home that God is asking me to build, I have to be able to read the blueprint. Now, in order for me to read the blueprint, I have to be acquainted with the blueprint. I have to be connected to the blueprint. So every time I reach a part in the blueprint where I can't, it's an impasse where I can't go any further, I have to go to God and say, okay, God, I am here and I don't know what to do. And God said, come, let me show you. And in order for you to take that directive from God, you have to be a servant.
Wow. We are talking, folks, if you are just joining us, we are talking to the Smiths, right? We're talking to Debbie and Eddie Smith, and we're talking about leadership in relationships and in the home. Okay, so the idea that God has designed and called men to bear a unique responsibility, Debbie and Eddie, to lead in their relationship or relationships, to whom has been challenged. It has been challenged a long time. The idea of men leading, I guess what I'm saying, is been challenged over and over again, particularly by feminists, various groups who don't believe in this kind of subordination. You talk about that. It just sounds like a bad word. And we were talking about Genesis chapter 3 verse 16, and at the end of it, it says that, and your husband shall rule over you.
Mercy.
And so to a lot of women, that's like, they reject that completely. No woman, I think most women don't like to hear that a man is ruling over them, okay? And in our contemporary context, there seems to be a particular acute nuance resistance to this notion of a man being a leader in the home, or the areas of male leadership that were once assumed and now questioned as outdated, patriarchal, misogynistic, at worst. So, and we talked about rule over you. So the feminists comes along, Debbie and Eddie, and they say we need to throw that out because it's about women's liberation. It's about women feeling that they have, they're at the table in ways that men, are at the table and even more, because most women don't feel like they're at the table. So what do you say to women who feel like, no, this is not about trusting, this is about power, this is about me being on equal footing with him. I don't want him to rule over me. What do you say to women when the Bible says, and your husband shall rule over you, what does that mean? How do you guys see that? Is it okay for a man to rule over a woman? Should we reject this feminist notion that, or should we uphold the feminist notion that, listen, we need to do away with the ruling thing? It's bad for business. It doesn't sell it doesn't get us anywhere.
Right.
What do we do with that? What do we tell people who don't believe in this structural thing of God, man, woman, children?
Yeah. We believe that God is a God of order. God is a God of order. We serve a God that is orderly in everything that he does. And everything that he does has a purpose. And so you hear a word like rule, and immediately your defenses come up. Because what do we associate with that word? Someone that, is domineering and lording over you, and, you have no say. But line upon line, precept upon precept, right? When you think about the bigger picture of who God is, when you think about the person of Jesus, who is the Word made flesh that came and dwelt among us, if anybody had the right to rule over people, it was Jesus. And yet, look at how he came. Look at how he lived. Look at how he served. The very people that he created, he stooped and washed their feet. So I think we need to stop getting so hung up on these words by themselves and look at God's intent, God's purpose, put it all together, and then it begins to make sense. Yes, the Bible was written in a very misogynistic time. No one can argue with that. Women did not have worth. Right. We were not valuable. But Jesus came, and guess what? He ministered to women. He healed women. He revealed himself upon resurrection to women. And so he has a special love and a connection to women. And so that tells me that I am not subservient. I am not beneath. I am not of no worth. I'm worth everything to God. And so let's stop taking these words out and giving them so much meaning that we forget who we were created to be. I know who I was created to be because I read the Word of God. I look at what Jesus has done for women. He died for me. He died for women. And so let's stop assigning so much power to these words and let's really look at who God is, what his intent was when he created us.
Good, Eddie.
Yeah, if we go back to the beginning and understand the purpose of our creation, it's for relationship. It's relational, and the Bible tells us that in the cool of the evening, God would come down, and hang out with Adam and Eve and have that relationship. And so if we'll notice the word rule and all these words, they came in after sin.
Right.
You follow what I'm saying?
Right.
So what God is saying that because of these are the things that comes with the consequences of sin. Because you have disobeyed my order, now you're gonna have to deal with a man ruling over you and all this stuff. But the Bible the Bible is very specific. You understand me? And it says, and the two shall become one. We are one in purpose. We are one in everything. You know, Simon. So therefore, Pastor Richards, if we are one, then there is no rule, no ruling over going on or any lordship. So after sin interferes with this. So what God has been doing ever since sin is to bringing us back to the order as to what relationship should look like before sin. Hence the reason why I said, husband, you're going to have to deal with loving your wife as I love the church. You understand me? And you may ask what that look like. Okay, I lay down my life for the church. I gave my life. So every time you are every time you have a concern or an issue with your wife, then your job is to die. Instead of pointing finger and said, you. No, God is saying, die. Because that's what I did for you, sir. I died for you. So you need to die for your wife.
Mercy. Wow. Wow. I told you guys. I said it. Listen, you're watching a special edition of Words from the Cross Bible Study. Listen, please click like and share. This is going to get powerful. They're with us for a little bit, and so we want to utilize every bit and frame of their time right now. I hear some valuable counsel being dropped here, and I hope that you're being blessed by this. Remember, you guys can send your questions in. We have Lois operating behind there. She is kind of, what you call her now? She's a...
She's the engineer.
She's the
engineer. Right.
She's directing, and she'll send the questions over to us, and we'll answer them. Now, this morning we talked about Herod, and we examined some areas of his leadership as a man, and we want to examine them with you guys. I want to hear what you guys think about them. So, Lois, I want you to get those questions up for me. We're going to switch for a little bit. We're going to talk about them. All right. So let me start off with this, though. When it comes to Herod, I'm going to ask you, Debbie, that question. I'm going to ask Eddie. As far as Herod's leadership, public and private, do you think that it's okay to lead one way public and lead another way private in your private relational life, or do you believe that the both of them they must somewhat coincide, they must blend, they must mesh in graph? Or is it okay for a man to lead one way, and outside, but then when he comes home is a different style of leadership? What do you guys think about that? And is that acceptable to some point, and then and then at some areas it's not acceptable?
I think that you have to show up as your authentic self wherever you are, whether you're in private or in public. However, I do think that there are times when you can switch your leadership style based on the setting. So the way that my husband leads me might not be the way that he leads his business. So he might show me a more tender, loving side as a leader that he doesn't necessarily want to show his employees. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I do think when you can't show up as your authentic self in any setting, that's an issue. So, for example, there are some men who have very controlling wives at home. Very controlling wives at home, and so they don't have an opportunity to lead out, to dissent, to have a difference of opinion at home, and so when they get out in public, they're very cantankerous.
Wow!
Because that's the only place that they have a voice.
Wow!
I think there's an issue there. I think that man needs to figure out what's happening at home. He needs to figure out who he is so he can show up as himself at home, so that he doesn't have to be so cantankerous and disagreeable in public, because that's the only time he feels that he has a voice.
Wow.
So I think your character is your character. People who see me, whether they see me at home, they see me at work, they see me at a networking event, they see me in a virtual space, I'm always going to be who I am. My personality is what it is. There are some people who, my husband, I have to be prim and proper when I'm around him. So, when he's around, I don't laugh too loud. I don't, make jokes. He doesn't like that. I have to be a certain way so you have to give yourself permission to be who you are, no matter what setting you're in. But I do think that there are times when you might be in a certain setting and you might not say certain things because that's not the appropriate setting for it. That doesn't mean that you're being phony. It means that you're able to read a room and you're able to carry yourself accordingly. The way that I sit here and joke and carry on with you and Lois might not be how I do that when I'm my public Mrs. Smith and I'm doing a presentation.
Yeah.
Yes, I can still have a sense of humor, but I think you need to know how to carry yourself differently in different settings, but you still show up
Good.
as
your
yourself.
authentic self.
Exactly.
And you know, she hit such a high note with that because I think Herod, in essence, was a man who was not authentic. I think he was just showing up as a madman here, showing up as, you know, a crazy leader here, narcissistic here. He was just not his authentic self. And I think that's so important in a relationship. Eddie, what do you think? You think the private life must match the public life?
Well, you know, and my wife hit on some very important points. Apart from the personal aspect, you know, where you know I am more attentive because she's my wife, you know, and I'm more. So you know, the saying that goes that you know, reputation is what people think of you, but character is who you are when no one is around. You know, well, in my opinion, your character and your reputation should be one and the same. You know, you have to be consistent with that. You know, and if you're doing something totally different, you know, definitely black and white, then you know you're not true to who you are. You understand me? You can't go in the pulpit every day, pastor, and every Sabbath and preach, but then when you're home, you're beating your wife.
Yeah. And I think that's you guys kind of bring it home when you talk about the authentic self. And because a lot of, I think, men live one way among their friends, and when they go out, when they come home, they're horrible. They beat their wives, they abuse them verbally. You know, so a lot of men, there's a disconnect to me with their private life and their public life. Lois, we have any comment there?
Just Yvette said
Okay.
that the consequences of sin was covered when Jesus came. That includes those hardships that come to relationship because of sin. And one lead without ruling.
Question. That's for you guys. Yeah, I'm just going to listen.
I'm definitely, I definitely believe that one can lead without ruling. You know. So again, I touched on the fact that the Bible talks about being a servant leader. You know, so as we were talking earlier, Pastor, is that you know my job as a husband is to make sure the temperature of my home is okay, you know, which means that whenever there's anything that is out of pocket, as we would call it, my job is to steer my family back to, you know, hey, remember, this is the tone that we need to set. You know, what should that look like? What are the things that we need to put in place? You know, I am not being authoritative by saying you need to. You know, I'm just reminding us.
Right.
Of the things that we need to put in place, you know, to soften the temperature of the home, you know, and my job also is to remind us, not to dictate, but to remind us, remember now, this is what the Bible says, and how do we achieve those things, you know, and let us have it, Bible says, you know, the Bible says, you know, let's have a conversation. You understand me? Let's reason together. And so, you know, it's in our reasoning together, then we can say, you know what, you know, my wife will say, or my children will say, Pops, you know what, you know, let's do this. You know, so it's not a dictatorial stuff. Is just a reminder, and in order for me to remind, is something that we would have to be practicing over a period of time.
So I'm hearing consensus.
Yes.
Leadership by consensus
Yes.
rather than leadership by rule.
Yeah.
But Debbie, a question though. But God rules over us, and His rulership is loving. He does rule over His creation, and so the structure of God is God, man, you know, His family. So isn't it, would it be correct to say a man should rule over his family as a loving priest? So
I think there are different types of rulership.
Right. Right.
Different types of leadership.
Right.
So, yes, you're the leader, you're the ruler over your home, but even God in all His sovereignty gives us freedom of choice. He gives us free will. And so when you think about rulership, what really does it mean? It
Right.
means that you're a covering. It means
Come on,
that
sister.
you are
Come on.
protection.
Right.
It means that you're taking responsibility. You
Come
take
on.
ownership for what happens to the people that you rule
Yeah.
over. That's what that means.
Yeah.
And yes, there are different types of rulers. There are some who likes to rule with an iron fist, and my way is my way, is the only way. And then there are some who want to have that more consensus. I work in higher education, and I'm a director. I have staff that I'm responsible for. What I try to do as a director is not make unilateral decisions. I try to get input from my staff. When there's a decision that has to be made, I get their input. Ultimately, yes, I'm going to make the ultimate final decision, but I make that decision having heard different voices and different input. And I think it's the same thing at home. Ultimately, Ed is going to make that decision. But there are certain times when I'm very strong that I need my voice to be heard, that I need you to consider what I'm saying. Then you go and you make the decision, and whatever decision you make, that's what it's going to be. But I know that I've given input.
And if he doesn't make the decision the way you, this is, I love it, I love it. So if he goes and he makes that decision, and he did not consider the input to the, give it as much visibility as you would want, what happens then?
Yeah.
Is it this now? Okay, brother, that's on you. Or do you own, or do you still own the decision, even though you know you might not have given her all the visibility in terms of her input, you know, in terms of what she was talking about? So is it that now the woman should say to you, well, no, it's on you. I told you exactly how I feel. You went and make the decision that I told you exactly not to make, or make it this way. So do you own the decision, or it's on him?
We do. No, we have to own it.
Come
we
on.
have to
Have to
own
own
it
it. Come
as
on.
a team.
Come on.
Now,
Okay.
Woo! Sister!
And
Sister!
you know, it has taken me time to get there, right? Because there has been a point in time when I'm like, listen, dude, I told you
Right.
that's not what you
Right.
should have done,
Right.
right? But I've had to grow beyond that,
Wow.
right?
Wow.
I've had to grow beyond that to the point where Ed is the priest of my home. He's the priest. And so there will be times when he might go a way that I didn't think he should go. But my job is not to say I told you so. My job is always going to be to cover him in prayer. My job is always
Wow.
going to be, God,
Wow.
don't let the repercussion or the fallout from this decision be so great that we cannot come back from it.
Right.
God, you be the one to catch us
on.
if this goes south.
Right.
Wow.
Remember I said, I trust God more than I trust Ed.
Right. And remember, you know, there is a difference in being the ruler over my home and being the ruler over a person. You understand me? I am the ruler over my home, which means that my job is to direct my home in the way that God has led me to direct my home, not the person, my home. You know, and I love what my wife said, and I appreciate it. I love you, baby. You know, and I'm gonna say this because when Eve decided to test out this fruit and did her thing, you understand me? If you notice, sin did not came into the world until Adam ate. And the reason for that is because God gave Adam directives, not Eve. You understand me? But here's what it is. There's a consequence in their behavior, and the consequence was sin. But Adam suffered it with Eve. Adam became homeless with Eve.
Mercy.
You follow what I'm saying? So it's not about, you know, I told you so and leave you hanging.
Nice.
You understand me? Is the two shall become
one.
Come on.
So go ahead.
There are a few comments.
Great. We love it.
They're hearing me.
Yes.
All right, so one has control. This is when you were talking about reputation and character. One has control over character, but may not have control over reputation.
Okay. Okay.
And which is true because character takes only one person. Reputation takes more than one. Because reputation is what people conceive of you or perceive of you, but character is actually who you are. You decide that I am going to be this character, and you make that decision. Has nothing to do with anybody else.
Okay, and go ahead, Lois. You got some more?
There's a question now. Should the male in a relationship allow himself to be led?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I listen. I have a story that I can tell you, but it's probably gonna take too long, so I'll cut it short. There was a time in our marriage, brother, and I'm being transparent right now, where we rented, and my wife lost her job. I was still working, but our income was not as much as our expenditure, right? And so we got backed up on let's talk about just the rent right now, and because I'm being real, right? And as a man, I'm figuring out, okay, how are we gonna do this? How are we? And until we got an eviction notice. Now that's foreign to me, bro, because I've never had that, and I'm there trying to figure out and stuff. My wife. Look at me. And so we're sitting on a piece of land that is almost 2 acres. So it's a lot of land with my house sitting in the middle. My wife looked at me and said, now this is 7 days before going to see the judge. I'm making this short. 7 days before going to see the judge, my wife said, babe, let us take this 7 days and march around the house. So I'm looking at her like, this ain't the wall. This is not the wall of Jericho. You ain't gonna talk about marching around a house. I'm saying it in my head. I'm not saying it to her. You understand me? I'm thinking about how am I gonna get, because it was 6,000 and change I owe at this time. I'm figuring out how am I gonna get the $6,000, and you talking about marching around the house. So anyhow, listen to me, bro. They're talking about being led. So I went with her, and I decided that, okay, day one we're gonna march one time, and so we started march. But here's what it is. Even though I went with her, I was not with her. I need for you to get this, somebody. Even though I went with her, I was not with her, because I was caught up in the fact that what my neighbor is going to say. Because there's 2 people holding hands side by side walking around their house. What is going on? You understand me? So while she was ahead walking and praying, I was behind her. Way in the distance behind her, pretending, Pastor Richards, as though I'm looking for something on the ground and all that stuff. Real talk. And I continued like that until I said, you know what? Wonder if my wife, if God is speaking to this woman, because I'm sure God may have tried to speak with me, but I'm so caught up in trying to figure out how to get this money on my own. I'm not hearing God. So God said, you know what? I'm going to leave you, dude. Let me talk to my wife. Talk to your wife. And so I made that rationale in my head. And by day 4 or so, I started walking beside her, holding hands, and we walked around the house. Watch this. So we went to the court. And now in Pennsylvania, you don't owe rent, right? Because when you owe rent, they give you 30 days eviction, you out. 15 days or 30 days and you out. Went to the judge sat with us, and he just started having conversation with us like, I'm his boy, and we just talk and laugh and whatever. And he said, okay, you guys seems like good people. What's the problem? You understand me? And long story short, he told the landlord, he says, listen, I'm not going to evict them. I'm going to give them some time to get that money up. I'm going to give them 90 days or so to get that money up, and if they get money and pay to you, they can continue living. I went back to church. Now, we were a part of a prayer group. Pastor Richards, we went back to church, and I'm rejoicing because I'm saying God has worked it out for us. You understand me? Give us 90 more days. Man, God worked it out, and we're here rejoicing. And how good God was. This is the Sabbath afternoon. About 20 minutes after I gave the testimony, a very unassuming man walked up to me and said, Brother Smith, I heard that you said you owe $6,000, blah, blah, blah. He said, I'm going to give you $7,000. I want you to talk about God. And this brother who asks about, should you allow yourself to be led by. This man said, I will give you $7,000. And here's what is happening. If your position were never to change,
You never owe me.
you never owe me. Don't worry about paying me back.
Wow.
But if it changed, take your time and pay me back whenever. God so have it where my position, our position changed, and we were able to pay him back. So to answer this brother question,
Yes.
Sister.
our sister's question,
Yes.
no, I think it was a brother there. So to answer your question, sir, yes. Absolutely yes, because sometimes we get caught up in our stubbornness and in our macho behavior that God can't talk to me because I'm there. And so sometimes God has said, dude, I'm gonna leave you alone. Let me talk to your wife.
And I think, Caswell, in the beginning, you made a statement about understanding one another's strength.
Right.
We both have strengths, and we both have areas where we need the help, where we need to grow. So I know my husband's strengths, and he knows mine. And so we're not in competition with each other.
Absolutely not.
He goes, Deb, this is your area. You go, you shine. I'm your biggest cheerleader. And the areas where there's certain things I don't touch, okay? We go out, we do workshops, we speak. I show up and I speak. That's my strength. My husband's strength, the PowerPoint or the technology. He's a beast. So why do I need to touch it?
Exactly.
I let him do his thing. He lets me do my thing. And together, we're unstoppable. So you have to understand, if your strength is in the finances, then for God's sake, lead in the finances. Allow your spouse to lead in that area. If you are the one who is organized and you can keep everything together, then you do that. Allow your spouse to be who God created them to be without feeling threatened, without feeling like, oh, I'm the man. I need to handle the checkbook. But you don't know how to balance the checkbook.
Right.
You don't know what needs to be paid when it needs to be
Right.
paid. So how can you lead?
Right.
You're going to lead your family to destruction.
Right.
So allow your spouse to shine in the area that God created. them to
Absolutely.
shine
So
in.
what I'm hearing from the both of you, and I'm hearing it loud and clear, that a good leader knows when he needs to allow someone
Yes.
to lead him.
No.
Absolutely.
Because what I
Pull back when you have
realized,
to,
you
bro.
did the Jericho march.
Yes.
He didn't get it.
No.
God touched. So another thing I'm learning about God and leadership, and sometimes God bring a certain issue not to the man, but to the woman. And so the man has to be comfortable in his skin.
Yes.
Comfortable enough to let that woman lead without feeling, like you said,
Yeah.
all shook up.
Right.
All
Right.
bent up in his feelings.
Ego. Come on.
You have to lay the ego down.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go back to my job, right? There's certain things that I'm not a numbers person. Don't ask, I'm not a, oh, you need this report. Okay, where am I going to get the report from? That's not my area of expertise. But I have people on my staff who love it.
Yes.
I have one young lady, she will sit there, she will analyze, she will run numbers. So you know what? When I have a report for my VP, I go to Bree, I say, Bree, I need a report. This is what my report needs. She sits there, she brings me the report. Is this it? I look at it, I say, this makes sense. But I know my VP and I know what she likes to see. So can you change this, and this? She gives me the report, I give it to my VP. Here's the report. I don't take credit for it. I tell her, my staff, this is her. I'm not threatened because
Exactly.
this person is not going to come and take my position. I'm secure in my position. And so, as a man, as a husband, as the priest, you have to be secure that, you know what? Okay, I lost my job last week. I'm no longer the breadwinner. But guess what? I'm still the leader.
Come on, sister.
I'm still the priest
Come
of
on.
my home. My wife is not all of a sudden going to grow a penis and scrotum and usurp my authority.
Right,
So you
right.
have to be secure in who you are. There's a certain level of confidence that comes with leadership. And as a woman, I'm an alpha female. I can be a very aggressive female. I know who I am. However, nothing is more attractive to me than a man that can lead.
Mercy.
A
Mercy.
man that has confidence, that can lead with confidence. Not that, I don't want a man who, you panic every time. So no, I need you to be able to say, you know what? This is the situation that we're in. Babe, let's sit down. Let's talk how we going to get out of it. Not, oh God, the ship is sinking. What am I? No, you want that steady, consistent, can make decisions, can come to you with an idea. That's one of the areas that we're very strong in. This man comes up with ideas like this. And he comes to me and he says, babe, we should do this, we should do that. I listen to the idea. I'm a processor, I told you.
Yes, I learned that.
I listen to the idea. I might not say anything. He's waiting for my response, right? He wants me to be like, yes, baby, that's great. Let's do it. I don't get excited like that. I sit, I listen. Sometimes it takes me 2 days and I come back and I say, babe, this is what I heard you say. But if we do 1, 2, 3 instead of ABC the way that you had it, boom. And he's like, oh man. Partnership.
Right, right.
You cannot lead. No man is an island. So even in your leadership, even in your rulership, you have to be able to listen to wise counsel. You have to be able to listen to other ideas and process them and then make a decision.
Yeah, somebody says here, Pastor Richards, that God rules, yet He says, "Come, let us reason together."
Yes.
And I'll tell you this, He said, my wife is very good at this. When the kids were younger, right? I never understood this about her. And if she tells you that she's going to give you a beating, you trust and believe.
It's coming.
It's going to get it. But then we're coming home from church and she will tell them from church, from the parking lot, that you're going to get a beating. And so from church to home is about 36 minutes drive. And all 5 of us would be in the car laughing and talking and just rapping. You understand me? And so that child now would say, oh, we're not going to get no beating because, everybody's good.
Mommy's in a good mood.
And so we will get home and she will get the belt. She will always, I started hiding my belt from her at some point, She will get one of my belt and she will say, okay, I'll be back. And 10, 15 minutes, I'm not hearing any crying or anything. I'm like, what in the world is going on? This woman is up there having a conversation with the child. And having a 10, 15 minutes conversation with the child. Then after that, oh my God, I'm sorry. I'm like, what kind of a person have a conversation with someone before they... So that's what God is saying when God said, come, let us reason together. Because God is saying, come, let me talk to you. Because I need for you to understand the reason why I'm about to do what I'm about to do.
Yep.
You understand me? So that you can understand it.
Yeah. The reasoning doesn't take away the consequences.
Come on, sister.
Of your action.
Come on.
Right? And as leaders together of a household with children, consistency is important.
Yes.
Our word is important. If we
Yeah.
say this is the consequence for this behavior, and then the behavior occurs and we don't enact the consequence, what type of example are we setting? So it's always tempered with grace and mercy, but there's always a consequence. That's part of leadership.
Yeah.
So Herod was, of course, an authoritarian leader. We see that based on what we are extrapolating from the text. So I would take it that in your space, there is no space for any type of authoritarianship. Because an authoritarian leader, of course, is somebody who takes, control. They like authority. So for you guys, then, you're not even entertaining the space of anybody trying to be authoritative.
Yeah, and even though I don't think we are authoritarian, there are times
When that's
when a decision has to be made on the spot, and there is no time to consult with the other person. We have to trust one another enough that you can make an on-the-spot decision, and I'll tell you about it later, and we're still going to be okay. So, I think everyone looks for these blanket statements, this one size fits all, and that's just not how life works. Like there are times when you have to adapt your leadership style. There are times when, as a director, yes, I love to get input from my team, but there are times when, you know what, I have to make a decision that might include terminating someone or cutting someone's hours. I can't go to them and get their input about that. I have to make that decision. So I think there are times when you can be very authoritative, even with your children. So we try to incorporate them and to have them give their input. But there are times when parents, we're not having a discussion. Because this is a matter now of principle. This is a matter of our value system. So we're going to make that decision, and we don't need any input from you. And I think as a leader, it's knowing when to exert certain authority, when you want to bring everyone together, and when it's time for you to just say, there are times when Ed has to make a decision. He just has to. As the priest, he has to make a decision. It's a matter of the spiritual health of our home and our family. And I might be in an emotional space where I can't see it that way. And he has to say, you know what, babe? I have to do this. I have to go pray about this, and I have to come back to you with a decision. And I have to just fall back and do my own praying. So I think as a leader, you just have to know what style you need to use when. You have to be flexible as a leader. You just can't be one way all the time. There are certain situations where you have to be a little flexible.
And it's fun that my wife said, because even at my job, as a director, there are sometimes I'll just say to the person, listen, unfortunately, I have to fire you. You understand me? But there are other times when I have a conversation with them and I said, do you understand the reason why I have to lay you off right now? Because here's what it is, and I will bring back the culture of the company, and I will have them reading and remind. And I said, listen, you have made the decision for yourself to be fired. I am just enforcing the rule. You follow what I'm saying? So sometimes, depending on the temperature or of the atmosphere and all that stuff, you just can't be one way all the time. You have to learn to adjust.
Talk to me, Debbie. Yes, go ahead.
Quick little funny comment.
Yes.
Sister Daphne said my mother was talking about when Debbie would talk first
And then beat after.
said, I would just rather get the whipping.
Yes.
So all that talking, you still gonna do.
Talk to me, Eddie and Debbie, about leadership and loyalty. Talk to me about loyalty in a relationship. What should loyalty look like? Because a lot of times in relationships, people throw each other under the bus. Especially when you're angry, especially when I'm not in agreement. For most women, the famous line is, I'm not feeling you.
Yeah.
I ain't feeling you right now. Trust me, I know what I'm saying. I get it sometimes too. Hey, real talk, as Eddie said. But talk to us a little bit about loyalty. Eddie's the leader in your family. He is the point man who God comes to like Adam. And there are times when, as a wife, you have to support him in terms of loyalty across many, it depends, just many different circumstances. Talk to me about the importance of loyalty between a couple.
Yeah.
And have you guys ever have to deal with loyalty issues? That Debbie, maybe you just felt like, nah, I just felt thrown under the bus. And,
What? You want to go first, or you want me to go?
He said Debbie.
Oh. And the two shall become one. So my name can be Debbie today.
Loyalty is a big deal.
Is
you
that
know.
big for you?
It's huge for me. Loyalty is huge for me. I need to know that my husband has my back. I need to know that he's never gonna leave me out there alone, and I need to do the same for him. That doesn't mean that we agree on everything, but that means that once the decision is made, it then becomes our decision, and we talked about that earlier. So I'm never gonna, and I had to learn that because we're a blended family, and so when you're the biological parent of children, it can get really, really sticky when you and your spouse don't agree on something, especially when it relates to the children. And so I remember early on in the marriage, being perfectly comfortable saying, that's not what I want, but that's what he said. And so it caused this divide, where it was us against him. And I realized this is not what I want for my family. And so it had to come to a place where we've decided, always that united front. We would fight about it and argue about it behind closed doors, but once the decision was made, we came out of that behind those doors and we're one. So loyalty is important. And before you throw your loyalty behind somebody, though, you gotta test them.
Come on.
Gotta test them. Because you can't throw your loyalty behind any and
Sister,
everybody.
that's hot. That is hot. That is hot.
It can't be this blind loyalty where I'm never gonna challenge you. I'm never gonna question you. It has to be a type of loyalty where, yes, I have your back, but I can only have your back after I know the types of decisions that you're gonna make.
Okay.
After I'm confident that you're always gonna put the family's best interest at heart. Then you have my blind loyalty because I know that you're never gonna do anything intentionally to hurt me or my kids.
So are you suggesting, Debbie, that a woman in a relationship when it comes to leadership should really test? Are you
And you
should
do
apply
that before getting married, Caswell. You do that. That's what dating is for. Dating is for making sure this is the right one. You want to make sure that you're seeing consistency. You want to make sure that you're seeing that decisions are being made based on a belief system and a value system. What does this person value? Because if they can't show you that and you can't see that, how can you trust them and then be loyal? So loyalty is very important. And one thing I can say about our family, we're blended, we have our issues, but when it comes to loyalty, I cannot think of anybody else in this world that I want to have my back except my family.
Wow.
My husband has my back whether I'm there or not. I know that if I'm not in the room, he's going to speak highly of me. I know that our children are going to speak highly of us. He knows that if he's not in the room, I'm going to speak highly of him. I'm not going to, there's some relationships, and we go through this in counseling sometimes, where they not only throw each other under the bus, but there's so little respect for one another that there's nothing positive. If you as a wife have nothing positive to say about your husband, that is an issue.
There you go.
That's a problem. And so you have to be friends. You have to understand what's important to that person. You have to make sure that you both have very similar value systems, because if there are major differences in those areas, you cannot be loyal to that person. You cannot trust that person. So loyalty is huge.
Yeah. And
Eddie,
especially
before you do that, I want you to talk to me about something because you are, Debbie has said it several times, it's a blended family you lead. Joseph was integrated into a blended family because he was not Jesus' biological father. What are the challenges of leadership in a blended family? Are there, is it more challenging than when you have like,
absolutely,
you know, it's
absolutely.
a bigger challenge, isn't it?
It's a bigger
and what
challenge.
would you say to men who are leading out in blended families? You have that experience.
Right.
What would you tell them?
Your leadership should be constant or consistent because that's where God placed you, right? But when in a blended family, you have to learn to build relationship first, right? Because I want to say this, that rules and regulation without relationship leads to rebellion, right? So if you want to lead effectively, first you have to build relationship. It's just like me leading my wife. The reason why she allowed me to lead her, is because I have built a relationship with her, and not only with her but also with God. So I need to do the same, building that relationship with the children, and it is very, very imperative that I do that. However, when it's time for punishment and all that stuff, I don't do the direct punish. I do that through her.
So you guys will kind of talk about it.
Talk about it. Have a conversation about it, and if it warrants some kind of I hate to use that word punishment, right? If it warrants some kind of discipline, then it goes through her. You understand me? Because my core job really is to build relationship. You understand me? After I build relationship, then I can do some form of discipline, direct disciplining.
Great. Listen, folks, you are watching Words from the Cross. Bible study, but it's a special edition today. We are entertaining and bonding and coming into agreement with Eddie Smith and Debbie Smith. They are relationship counselors, mega New York Times best-selling, 3 books.
New York Times, Amazon.
Amazon. Sorry. Oh, not quite yet.
Not
Not
yet.
quite yet. Amazon. I'm sorry. Hey, I'm speaking into existence. I'm telling you. So we're talking to them about leadership and relationship. And boy, I'm telling you, oh, you have a question. We've been blessed by them. So let's take that question. Go ahead.
Should a non-Christian man be trusted to lead his home?
I think there's one before that, sister. Yes.
I don't see it.
Is the lack of loyalty a temperature check on a relationship?
Wow.
And I really think it is, because as my wife spoke a lot about covering, but she spoke a lot about covering at home. I also think that in public, your covering, should be, in public, your covering should be even more, because there are times that, let's say, your spouse get into an altercation with something and with someone or whatever, and you walked up and you hear the story. Your job is not to expose your spouse in public, right? But to cover her, But then when you get home, you can talk about where you think your spouse went wrong. So if I'm going to be disloyal, and keep exposing you in public, then that speak volume to where my loyalty is.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I mentioned too, the testing, even before you get to the marriage. When I'm dating you, I have to be confident that I could be loyal, that you deserve my loyalty.
Right.
You have to prove yourself to me that
Right.
you deserve my loyalty.
Right.
And then once you have it, you have it. So yeah, absolutely. It should be a temperature check.
Herod was a control freak.
Oh my God.
Yeah, he was, because we see that in how he governed. Things had to go his way. He would kill to make things happen. So looking at how controlling Herod was in terms of the leader, talk to me a little bit about control. Debbie, I always start with Debbie. Talk to me as a woman and what do you say to people who are experiencing either spouse, maybe it's not the man who is controlling, because there's some women who are extremely control freaks. So talk to us a little bit about how do you avoid control? How can somebody go about untangling themselves from that? And what does that look like? Is it sometimes good to have a little bit of control? Maybe not control in terms of the relationship, in terms of the everyday, but some people are wrestling with sexual control. Marital, in the bed, one wants to have sex a certain way, or demand that you dress a certain way, or when you put on those granny stuff, it's like, oh, you're turning me off, right? Like, dude, what? And so he's very vocal and want to control that ebb and flow.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about how you guys see all of that stuff.
I like to swing from the chandelier. I like to swing from the chandelier, but my wife don't like to swing from the chandelier. So, how do we balance?
How do you balance that?
Yeah.
Yeah, because you have couples who are very conservative, couples who are very outgoing, very adventurous, and sometimes control is a mechanism used to get my way, because I preach it over and over and over and over again.
Right.
How do you guys deal with all of that kind of stuff?
So we were all born in sin and shaped in iniquity. We are selfish creatures, and we want our way. Okay, I am a control freak.
Mercy.
Well, let me hear it. Did she just say what I think she just
You heard it from her mouth.
Yes, I am.
You are.
I am.
Real talk, real talk.
I am a control freak.
How so?
I like things to be done my way.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
The way that I say it, when I say it,
And how you say it.
how I say it. And yes, part of overcoming that is being able to admit it. Okay, so yes, I have admitted it, and I work on relinquishing control, because it's an ego thing. When you have to be in control, it's an ego thing, because and these are conversations that I have to have with myself. And these are conversations that I have with God during my personal devotion time. That God, I want everything my way. And then he says back to me, it's because you don't trust me. You think you're indispensable. You think if you're not a part of it, if you're not doing it, and so I had to learn to step back. And not just as a wife, as a person, as a wife, as a mother, wanting to control even my children. Like it's bad. And so self-control is a fruit of the Spirit. And when you begin to look at it as a spiritual thing, you begin to kind of take a step back and say to yourself, are you going to die if the towels are not folded just so?
Wow.
Are you going to die if the linen closet
It's not.
is not, you know what I mean? And so those are, and when you begin, it's a small thing. And when you begin to relinquish control of some of the smaller things, it begins to seep into other aspects of your life. And you begin to kind of say, you know what? I trust you, God. I'm going to take my hands off of this. I don't need to be in control. I mean, even things like, you know, Ed would be looking for a job. And I'm just like, okay, I got to do the resume. I have to do the cover letter. Like, I'm trying to control the outcome of his job search. Oh, I know somebody over there. Let me call you. Like, not trusting God to do anything. If I don't fix it, God, it's going to fall apart. And so I had to recognize that my need for control was spiritual and that I didn't trust God. And so I had to really, okay, like you don't trust God, but you trust yourself to fix the situation. And so self-control is huge. It's ego. And some of us are borderline narcissistic. You know, we can look at the president and see it. But
Because
do we
it's
look at
blatant.
ourselves?
Right.
Some of us are just mini him. Our impact is just not as big. We're not in charge of a nation, but we're just as narcissistic. We're just as controlling. We're just as selfish. And so it is a spiritual battle, and we have to fight it on our knees.
How do you deal with control?
Man, listen, I have to realize, as my wife said, am I gonna die? You
this
know,
mountain.
yeah. This is not the hill that I
Not
want to
the
die
die
on.
on.
So I just need to relinquish. Sometimes because for me, and now it was hard for me in the beginning, but it's now become much easier for me because this is something that I've practiced. A lot of times, I deal with my wife as though I'm dealing with God. And it means that, even when she's talking to me about some things and I have some crazy Jamaican's ways in my brain that I want to respond to her, but I know once it proceeds out of my mouth, I can't take it back. So subliminally what I do, Pastor, is I remove her from in front of me and I replace her with God, and I respond to her as though I'm responding to God.
Mercy. Great.
Sometimes I have to say to her, I don't want to do that right now. I want to be human. You understand me? And I want to deal with my emotions as they're coming as human. You understand me? But God is saying, but then every time I say that, or every time I get to that place, God is saying to me, Ed, you need to love her like I love her. So that means that you need to respond to her like I would respond to her. You understand me? And and so I have to put my ego under suppression and said, all right, babe.
Wow, we are talking to relational counselors or relationship counselors, Debbie and Eddie Smith. I've been looking forward to this for a long time, and boy, Lois, I mean, this is really good what we're hearing here, and I'm sure those folks who are viewing are really being blessed. All right, one of the things that I'm fascinated about in a relationship and leadership, I realized when I was writing the sermon yesterday, was that Herod was terrible at caring for people. Terrible. And it is as evidenced by his response to Mary and Jesus. This was a pregnant woman with a child, was about to give birth. And he knows that because he has children, who, by the way, he later killed. He assassinated. But he was terrible at caring. How important it is in a relationship to care. To care. I mean, what does that mean for you, Debbie? Care. What does care look like in real time?
Yeah. If you don't care about the people that you're leading, you don't want what's best for them. You don't care about their development or their growth. And for me, being cared for is, I need somebody that's going to be tender with me.
What does tender mean?
Tender means you care about my feelings. My feelings matter to you. Tender means, tender means that you have something that you cherish, something that matters to you. And when I think about caring about something, I think about being a parent. And you have these little people that depend on you for everything. But these little people grow. And as they grow, you want them to develop so that they can make their own decisions. They can begin to take care of themselves. And I think leaders want to grow other leaders. But too often what happens is you have leaders who are afraid that another leader is going to be better than them. And it's almost human nature that we don't want to see the next person doing better than we are. We're going to support you as long as you don't get any better than me, any bigger than me. And so
The crab in the barrel.
right. And so as a leader, as you know, there's this now there's a lot of talk about emotional intelligence. How emotionally intelligent are you? How empathetic are you? How can you look at someone else and feel their pain? And I think in a family, you have to be able to do that. As a husband, you need to be able to sense when something's off with your spouse. Because you should be so in tune with her that you know something's off. She's not herself. She's not responding like she normally does. So what's the matter? You know, as parents, we need to sense when something's happening with our children because we should be so connected with them that we know they're off. So then your job becomes figuring out what's wrong and what can you do to make it better. That's what care means. You know, the Bible says that we should bear one another's burdens.
Yes.
It's not about bearing a stranger's burden. How can you do that if you can't even bear the burden of the people that you live with? So I think a lot of times we take the word of God and we apply it out there. You know, we think about being a good Samaritan, and we think about being a good Samaritan to a stranger. Somebody that we just happen to come upon, somebody that's less fortunate than we are. Everything begins at home. Home is our first ministry. So love God and love others. Love God and love your family. Love the people that He put under you, that you're responsible for. And so if you don't love the people that you're leading, if you don't care about the people that you're leading, you're not going to be a good leader because you don't have their best interest at heart. So to me, you know, caring about somebody is being tender with them, being concerned about what concerns them. It is bringing out the best in them. You should want that person to become the best version of themselves. And so what are you willing to do to help them become the best version of themselves?
And that takes a lot of sacrifice.
Lots of sacrifice.
That takes a lot of sacrifice. I want to keep on this care thing some more.
I don't think you answered the question.
What?
though.
Say that again, honey.
The one about what should a non-Christian man
Lead.
Should a non-Christian man be trusted to lead his home?
Let me take a stab at that. I think if a man, so now we don't want to boil down leadership to just Christianity, because leadership is a wider concept than Christianity. If a man has a family, I believe, Eddie, that's his family, and he's responsible to lead his family, whether he's Christian or not. He's supposed to integrate to the best of his ability, you know, what he knows, because not everybody knows what Eddie and Debbie knows. Not everybody, you know, are Christians. So I think, Lois, if I'm hearing this right, is that the person's asking, should...
Lead, a non-Christian man lead his home.
Yes.
Yes, period. Because he's the leader of his house. He's a male. God has given him that responsibility to lead. Now, it's also good that a non-Christian man run on real quick and understand God's design for leadership. And acquiesce to that. Yeah, I believe. Yeah, so the answer is yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And don't forget that the Bible talks about a wife who has a non-believing spouse.
Exactly. Yes.
And
2
so-
Corinthians, yes. 7.
So you have a responsibility. If you are a believer and your husband is not a believer, you have a responsibility to live in such a way
Yes.
that you draw him
Right.
to Christ.
Mercy.
I think a lot of times we get Christian women who marry non-Christian men, and now they're looking for a way out of the marriage.
Say something more about that, Debbie. That's huge.
It is.
Debbie, that's huge because that most of the men, Eddie, are in jail. They're in prison. You know, right now it used to be 10 men to one woman. That's changed. It's like about 20 now.
Or probably even more.
More, right? Because most of our black men, black males in particular, are jailed. And so the women in the church literally now, because most of the men in the church are taken, most of them is out in the world, they go into the world to find their leadership. And so that means connecting myself, you know, to somebody who is not in the house of God. How is that a dangerous thing? Is that something that women should, especially when you're a woman of God, stay away from? I mean, are they playing Russian roulette?
It is. It is a dangerous
It is.
thing. You know, there are some, and we could all point our fingers at some one-off cases that we know that have worked out well.
Right.
But it is a dangerous place to go. And again, it goes back to trusting God, trusting His timing, not rushing, not compromising your values and you know, the things that you believe in. However, you have made the decision. You are now married to this non-believer. It's not a time to question leadership. That's something that should have been done before
From the
marriage,
inception, right.
Now you are married and the man is the head of his house. Now, what do you do as a believing spouse? You live your life in such a way that you try to win him to Christ. You try to surround him with men of integrity that can pour into him, you know, try to educate him. You pray for him, you know, more than anything. This is not a question that has an easy answer. You know, this is where you have to rely on other women to support you, to build you up, to be that place, that safe place where you can go and you can vent and you can cry out. But most importantly, you have to learn how to cry out to God, and you have to live a life that is consistent with the word of God.
Right.
You know, it's not a time to look for a way of escape. You know, you should have been running before you said I do. Now that you said I do, you're stuck. You're here. So you have to make the best out of your marriage. And we always want to say this, right? Because we're never talking about being in an abusive situation and staying no matter what. That's definitely not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about that you're a believer, you're married to a non-believer, he doesn't come to church with you, he doesn't honor the Sabbath, he doesn't, you know, believe in not eating unclean foods. Those are all things that
matters to you.
Stay and you can pray through, and you can still live your Christian life and be an example to that man.
Yeah. You see, Pastor, the core problem is oftentimes once you start out wrong, you end up wrong, right? And so, as my wife stated before, dating is a very vital part as to how the rest of your life may look like, you know, and we always said, you know, in dating, you need to write a job description for your heart. Right? And while dating, you need to interview people based on that job description.
Right.
You know, and so the problem is, let's say your job description is saying that you need an accountant, but then a janitor showed up, right? Or a whomever else showed up. You start interviewing the janitor and start to match that janitor for to fit an accountant. You understand me? And when that happens later on, when it's time for you to do the books, you're gonna have problem because that person is. And while there is nothing wrong with a janitor, but that's not what your job description says. You understand me? It is for an accountant, and so we incorporate the people that does not match our job description, because sometimes we don't even have a job description, which means that now what we did is that we have our value system, and so because everybody's booed up and I'm not, and my biological clock is ticking and I can't wait, I start to compromise my value system to accommodate the relationship. And when you do that, you would have started your divorce before getting married. You understand me? So now later on in the marital relationship, now you start to have these problems, but these problems were there a long time ago, but you ignore them. What I call them, you just keep collecting red flags and hoping that you can change them into a green flag or a yellow flag or something else. But they're red. And they're red for a reason. Your job is to say, okay, this did not match the job description of my heart. I need to move on.
Yeah.
Wow. Once again, Lois, how are we doing on time? Where are we at?
5:35.
Okay, so we have a few minutes to go. Listen, you are watching Words from the Cross. Bible study is special edition. We are talking with Eddie and Debbie Smith, relationship counselors, certified, amplified, glorified, solidified, magnified, magnified. And so they're here talking to us about leadership in relationships, and they're kind of really giving us some really cool stuff to think about. Debbie and Eddie, I want to go back to care a little bit, talk a little bit about care, because oftentimes there are issues coming up, different issues come up in a relationship where the leader is doing certain things, the man is doing certain things, and all of a sudden when the woman don't see it that way, she said, "You don't care about me." It's a common thing that it's a common tool, buzzword, hot button word that we press.
Men does it too.
Work with me here, brother.
I apologize, sir. I apologize.
And so we hear that all the time in relationship, where the woman, yes, you're right, men do that, and maybe much more often than the woman, where one accused the other of not caring, just on the basis of one single issue. Everything could be all right and going well, but this issue comes up, and because I'm not getting my way, because it's not formulating, you're not ebb and flowing the way I want you to flow, all of a sudden you don't care about me. And now you're going to bring up stuff that happened when Johnny was a boy.
Right. So
How do you deal with that?
the problem with that is you don't care about me. Don't get stuck on those words. I need for you to focus on why is she saying that. There is a disconnect that causes her to be saying that. What is the disconnect? And now, babe, let us talk. Obviously, you know that I care about you, but there's a disconnect. What is the disconnect? And focus on that, and if you can resolve that, you resolve the problem. Remember now, everybody has a love language. And if I'm not responding to my spouse in the language of which she can understand or relate to, then I am not connecting. You understand me? So I need to understand where is the disconnect and try to reconnect.
Yeah. And so you don't care about me. The number one issue with that statement is we tell our couples, do not use you statements.
Right.
Use I statements. So instead of you don't care about me, we want you to say, I feel blank when blank happens. Because the minute you start with the you don't, you said, you did, the other person's defenses automatically comes up. So now I'm trying to justify, I'm trying to explain, I'm trying to, help myself out of the situation because you're accusing me of something. But if, and we always tell our couples to get to the heart of the matter.
Come on.
What is that initial emotion? Usually we're hurt,
What triggered it? Right.
right? Usually we're hurt. But instead of saying that we're hurt, because saying that I'm hurt puts me in a vulnerable space. So instead of saying I'm hurting, I go to the next emotion, which is anger. And now I come attacking. So get to that initial, what was that initial emotion? Let's talk about that. Address it. You know, we teach couples how to have a conversation because we talk to each other, but we're not really communicating. Okay? I just want to be heard. You just want to be heard. And neither one of us ends up being heard in the end. So how do you have those conversations? You started off by saying, I feel. Babe, I was really hurt when you made that statement. Instead of, you hurt my feelings, you're always hurting my feelings, you just don't care. Different. It just sets a different tone and it allows us to now be vulnerable with each other and have a conversation.
She said, Debbie said something a while ago, I thought it was powerful, that sometimes people, they're talking, but they're not communicating. Wow. I mean, that is very rich in its, has a lot of substance to it, because I get it. A lot of times people just talk out of pain.
Right, because a lot of time, Pastor, is that, you know, because every couple has a dance, right? Because the Bible talks about two shall become one. You have that dance that you do, and what problem does is come and interfere with the dance. So now, even though you're dancing, but problem steps in. So now you start stepping on each other's toe, and so it interferes with the 1 step, 2 step, or whatever, the rhythm of the dance, the timing of the dance, and so what you need to do is to, because your primary objective is to go back to that dance, right? And because you want to go back to that dance, you need to say to yourself, what is allowing me to keep stepping on Debbie's toe? You understand me? And start all over again. So what am I saying in essence is that, you know, try to get, when issue comes in, try to see how we can resolve it, as opposed to talking about right and wrong. You understand me? Try to resolve it. Not everything is resolvable, but every problem is manageable, right? So those of which you can resolve it. Quickly, regardless of who is right and who is wrong. Is resolution you're looking for, brother, because you want to go back to your dance. You understand me? And if you cannot resolve it, talk about how can I manage it and manage that problem.
You know, and this leads me to say this. You are watching... You're watching Words from the Cross Bible Studies, brought to you by Grace Advent Ministry. We are sitting down and having a conversation with relational counselors and authors, Eddie and Debbie Smith, in studio with us today. All right, so Eddie, you just hit something that I'm really going to have to push you on a little bit. And
Come on.
Debbie.
Don't push me too hard now, but push.
It all right, so you said that not every problem can be resolved, but there's some problems that you have to manage.
Right.
Did I get that straight?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So when you said when something happens, as a leader, you have to deal with it. That's what you're saying? Yeah, I hear you right? Like you have to deal with the problem. You can't, I'm feeling you're saying you can't just push it aside and not deal with it. If you're going to manage it, you have to confront it, right? If you can't deal with it, if you can't solve it, you still have to say, so there is a level of communication that is vital for both processes, whether manage or simply unresolvable. Carries a level of communication. So how does a leader in his family deal with someone, or if either the couple who just doesn't want to deal with a manageable problem because they're irritable, and I think this is mostly for women, and I'm not trying to be misogynistic here, because God knows my bones are far from that. What I'm saying is that sometimes women tend to just not want to deal with a particular problem because they're to me, emotional from time to time, and they see things a little bit different. Their lens, their processing way different. And by the way, let me put a caveat to this, Debbie. I personally believe that a woman is way smarter than a man. Now, some men don't like that, but that's how I feel. And that observation just came from me growing up. See how the girls were far ahead of the boys. Education, they were much more settled. Relationship, they know what they want at an earlier stage, and they jump in and they will not look back. Men don't know what they want, a lot of them. They will hop, skip from this relationship to that relationship. So I say that to say, I think just women are just more mature sometimes, but in relationships, I think that there are times when leaders have to deal with, I don't want to deal with this right now, or I'm not talking about this right now. And you set it aside. And in my estimation, the longer it's set aside, it's the more emotional damage it's doing. Because now it's doing like what Cornel West said, Langston Hughes said, sorry, it's festering like a sore. How do you deal with circumstances like that as a leader, Eddie? Well, let me ask you, have you ever have to deal with that, where Debbie said, not now? Not now. I don't care what you tell me. I don't want to talk. I am not talking to you. Please, leave the room. Let us talk about it later. I'm telling you, this is not a good time. How you deal with
And
that?
absolutely, there's nothing wrong with that.
Okay.
But the danger, however, is in when you ignore it forever. You understand me? You know, we're pretty good at listen. You know, because like with her, she is not. She don't like confrontations. She don't like issues and all that stuff. So
Not a drama. She don't like drama.
no, you understand me? And so sometimes, the first place that she will go to whenever there is something is that anger place. I'm upset. You understand me? Never try to resolve a problem with her when she's upset.
Leave her alone.
Leave her alone. You understand me?
She knows
And
that.
and sometimes she will say, babe, give me 24 hours, or give me 2 hours, or give me a minute. Let us come
calls
back.
for her me time.
You understand me? And you need to respect that.
Okay.
You need to respect because again, your focus is not to win a point, but to resolve a problem. And if resolving the problem is best 2 hours from now or 24 hours from now, then let's do that.
Okay.
You follow what I'm saying? So again, I can't get all involved in my ego and no. You understand me? The Bible says, "Come, let us reason together," which means that in order for us to reason together, it takes two or more to do that, and so which means that she has to be in a place where she can reason. Just like I have to be in a place where I can reason. And so if she needs 24 hours, then I need to give that to her.
So do we need to challenge, all right, let me back off of that question. And Debbie, tell me what you think about what he said.
As with everything, we didn't get there overnight.
Right.
We had the knockout, drag out,
The 10 rounds.
yelling matches,
Shots fired.
silent treatment.
Right.
Because, Caswell, I know I can speak for myself. As women, we have been taught how to cut you, chew you up, and spit you out with our words. Okay? We know how to do that. And so, and I think Ed had to learn the hard way. Like, when I say, let's not do this now, it's for a reason. Because I know how dangerous my mouth can be. And as much as I don't like confrontation, I've never been an arguer. I've been a fighter. I'm not arguing with you. If you come within fighting distance, we're going to fight. But I'm not arguing. That's always been, my mom will tell you how many times she got called from the school because Debbie's fighting again. Never learned how to use my words. So when you grow up like that, and we tell people all the time, you take your childhood into your marriage. It follows you. And so not having had the skill to communicate, and my parents were silent too. Like they didn't argue. So that's what you learned. That's what you saw. And so when I say I'm not doing this, it's for a reason. And I think my husband had to learn the hard way. We've had some harsh words, okay?
There's sometimes I had to knock her out, man. Knock her out, cobra, bam!
Never that, guys. I would not be sitting here.
If you ever done all right, well, we're out.
No. But, things that to this day he remembers because our words have meaning and we can't take them back. We could apologize 1,000,000 times, but the words that we say have power and they stick. And so we didn't get to this place overnight where we understand each other. And so if we are getting into a heated argument and one of us says, okay, we got to stop because it's getting to a dangerous point, that we know we have to back off. Take off the gloves, everybody throw your hands up and back away from each other. Because this marriage thing, it's important. And you never want to be in a space where the person that you love is so hurt by something that you've said that it causes this division in your relationship. Because even when you apologize, if you were here before that,
it is so hard
to
get you back.
You're close, but you never get back there. And so, allow each other the space and the time that you need. Don't badger the other person. And what we say is, give 24 hours. You don't want to put down the discussion forever. But if you're in a heated place, it's okay to say, you know what? We're both really, really angry. We need to put this down. Tomorrow at 6 p.m., we're going to have a conversation.
Because what that does is tomorrow at 6 p.m., mentally or subliminally, it's preparing my mind, for 6 o'clock tomorrow. And it's preparing her mind so that, we're coming now in a more calm space. Because we have prepared ourselves, but we have to talk about it.
And sometimes you need more than 24 hours.
Absolutely.
If it's one of those topics that's really, really, both of you are so passionate about it, sometimes you need to give a week. Because if in a week somebody is willing to at that point say, this is not the hill that I want to die on.
Right.
And that's where you want to get to. And sometimes that's what we mean by resolving or managing, right? That the pit of my stomach is no longer in knots over this issue, but yours might be. So this means this is something you are very passionate about a week later. This is your issue. So now I'm in a place, I'm calm about it anymore. I'm calm now. I can listen to you. Most likely you're going to get your way because I don't want to die on this hill.
Right.
So sometimes you give yourself that space to see who is most passionate about this topic. Who deserves this win? Give the person the win. Go back to being lovey-dovey with each other. You know what I mean? So it's okay to put some space between certain conversations.
And even you as the person, sometimes, because, sometimes you are right, but you can give away your right based on how you approach a situation, so sometimes before I approach my wife with an issue, I process it first. I process it. And sometimes when I'm going to her, sometimes I have to make a disclaimer. babe, I'm about to say something, but this is the only way I know how to say it, for you to understand it. However, the way that I'm about to say it, please don't take it this way, because that's not what. And so you make that disclaimer so it prepare her, your spouse's heart more to receive it
Yeah.
in a more loving way.
You know, I'm coming, Lois, I'm receiving an epiphany here, because I want to tell you guys something. This has helped me so much, because a lot of men are coming from a place of rejection.
Mm-hmm.
Fathers have rejected them. They have grown up without that that touch, that fatherly touch, or just rejected, period. And so when they get in relationships and stuff happen, they're seeking the attention of the other, especially in heated moments. And that is the moment where somehow they're processing, I need you in this moment, not to abandon me. So I'm pressuring you, please, let us talk, let us talk. And I think men have to learn how to rewire themselves and realize that the person is not rejecting you, they're just rejecting what can happen in that moment that can be even more detrimental to the relationship growth. So I get it. I totally get it. Lois, go ahead, sweetie.
I had a question myself.
Okay.
What about the scripture that says, do not let your anger go down?
Do not let the sun
Go down on your
anger.
anger.
So that's a
Yeah.
powerful scripture to come and fit in
Yeah.
all of this.
And that's exactly where the managing and the resolving happens. When
Right.
you're able to say, listen, we're not going to be able to resolve this tonight. We're going to put it down.
Right.
And I'm going to bed not angry, right? Because we're
That
we're
is key.
That's an
tabling this.
agreement.
That's
Yes.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
We're tabling this, so that you can still have your devotion, you can still
Still
pray,
follow,
you can
but
still
still,
kiss
yeah.
each other, you can still go to bed, and tomorrow is another day. Some people feel that that scripture means we have to resolve it before we go to bed.
Can you be intimate with the person? If a situation, if you and a person reach an inflection point as high as that, and you table it, you pray together, talk together, and you go in the bed and say, man, come on now.
Well, let me tell you.
Can we
So-
even
so-
that's
so-
not even a conversation.
So let
just-
Listen, it depends.
it depends. So here's what it is.
Yeah. It's a
Because for most women, and I have to be careful, for most women, physical intimacy, talking about sex, right, is connected with
Depends.
emotions.
Yes.
With
yes.
emotions.
It depends if I'm feeling
Right,
you.
it depends.
Yeah.
For most men, sex has no connection with anything.
Exactly.
We just want to have sex. You understand me? For Edward James Smith III, sex is connected with emotions.
It is.
It is
For
connected.
Debbie Petra Smith,
And for Debbie Petra
it ain't
Smith,
connected to
it ain't
nothing.
connected.
we can get it on.
You understand? Yes. You see that? You see that? It is crazy, brother. It is crazy for me because for me, okay. So and again, it's being transparent. You know, a man. If you talk to a man my age, I just turned 60. Right? If you talk to a man my age, he probably tell you that he may have had sex with how many thousands of women. I can't say that. And the reason why, and I'm not tooting my horn, and the reason why I can't see a girl outside there and say, man, she look fine. You understand me? Let me go and mac her and have sex with her. You understand me? I don't know what it's like to have a one-night stand. Because for me, I have to have an emotional connection with you before I can have sex with you. You understand me? Oh. And so as a result of that, you know, I have very few women that, you know, I've had sexual connection with, you know, and so it has always been, you know, when her and I have issues, you understand me? I have to be in a place of
Resolution.
you understand me? Because again, I have to be emotionally connected. When she,
Wait a minute, Eddie. I just want to get you right up in here.
bro, I'm a hundred.
Tell me, listen to
Yes.
me.
The counselors need
You're
some
trying
counseling.
to tell me
Yes, bro.
that she's in a space
Yeah.
where she's saying, bro, let's shoot that under the carpet. We're trying
Yeah.
to deal with that now.
Right.
Get on up in here. Let's get it moving. And you're telling me you're
Yeah.
in your feelings trying to fix something?
Yes,
And
yes,
then I
yes.
have to remind him what the Bible says.
Right,
okay?
right.
Withhold. Hello. Your body is not your own.
It belongs to her.
And I'm being real. You understand me? Just like in our relationship, I am the person who is a talker
Yep.
and want to resolve, and she's not.
Yeah.
You understand me? She shuts down like a man would in a relationship, and I'm the one who wants to talk. You understand me? While in a normal relationship, the man is the one that who stonewalls and the woman always want to talk. It's just weird that way, bro. It's just weird because when I think I love like a woman. Whenever I love hard. You understand me? And everything is emotional. Sexual intimacy is tied with emotions for me. You understand me? Because the more emotional involved I get with you, you understand me, is the more aroused I become, and that's why for transparency, and I'm so sorry that you people, that's why for me, the more you talk to me during that act, you understand me, is the more aroused I become, and the longer. If you're a quiet person, I'm done. 1, 2, 3, and I'm done.
Ooh-wee.
You understand me?
I'm shocked up in here.
Talk to me.
I'm trying to process.
No, Cassie, call me the Mac Daddy. You understand me? Say my name.
Are you serious? What a role reversal here.
Yeah.
For me, it doesn't really matter. Listen, if we say let's table it, we table it, and let's move on to the next thing.
Yep.
And if the next thing is that we need to be intimate and grab each other and hold each other and laugh and do what we need to do,
And again, swing from the
and
chandelier.
then swing from
Yes, because sometimes it's that physical
Sometimes that's all it
connection
needs.
Yes.
Yeah,
that brings
right.
you back to that emotional
Exactly.
Absolutely.
exactly.
And, and that's the beauty of marriage. Two completely different people that the Bible says should somehow become one. And that's why marriage is for a lifetime, because that's how long it's going to take for us to get to a place of emotional oneness. But it's funny because for some people, or one person in the marriage, I need to feel emotionally connected to you so that we can be physical. And for the other person, I need the physical connection
So I can be
so I
emotional.
can feel emotionally connected to you.
Right.
And so it's understanding one another. And this is where putting down selfishness comes into play. When you know that's what your spouse needs from you, you give it to them.
But Debbie, what I see here, to be honest with you, is that when you are open to him that way, you are ministering to the deepest part of his emotions. And he's trying to take time to process all of that. When God has put you with him and your openness, listen, for a woman to make you touch her, for her to make you want, now let me talk to him, somebody. Let me talk to him. Can I talk to him? One of the deepest things to a woman is for you to touch her. You know, a lot of that is the deepest and most sacred piece to a woman.
Yep.
And so when she entertains you in the midst of even conflict, in the midst of trying to resolve something, she is opening up to you and accepting you for who you be in that moment. She is tendering and caring for that emotion that you're sitting outside pondering about. When God set it up in there plain square, shoot and kill, devour, let's conquer. No.
And Caswell, go a step further, because what happens when that's rejected?
Or your spouse feels rejected.
Now
Right.
that creates a
Right.
whole new
Yes.
level
Yeah.
of operation,
Right.
because now she opens up to you the most sacred thing that she
Right.
has in possession.
Yeah.
So, but now watch this though, Pastor. Like for us, and I can only talk about that. It is not something that happens all the time. You follow what I'm saying? Depending on what happens and how emotionally hurt or whatever I may be. There's sometimes all she needs to do is just do something to make me laugh, and that breaks
And that breaks
the cycle. You understand me? There's sometimes she may just touch me the right way, and that breaks everything. You understand me? So I'm talking about. So it's not a consistent behavior. You understand me? But it do happens because I am just an emotional person. Hence the reason why I cannot see a person across the street and say, "Man, she look fine," and if she's allowing me, I'm gonna have sex with her. It's not gonna happen because I'm not emotionally connected to that person.
And that is really good. That is an awesome thing, because most men are quite the opposite of that. They're not thinking emotionally.
Right.
They're thinking physically. So that's a guardrail to me as a leader, and that's something good that you can always depend on. That, listen, I just know him that way. But I do think that in times when that happens, there has to be reflection about, as Debbie said, now how is she feeling in that moment that she's opening up to you, and now we're withholding. So I think, to be in all transparency, my wife is a little bit different. She's not, how would I say this? She's a little bit more open. She will not want to budge for a little bit, but all right, put it this way. Let me
But
start
if you push the envelope,
that's
she's
correct.
right.
So if something happens and I go and lay down beside her, the first thing I'm getting is the back turn. So I know
Typical woman.
the back is turned.
Right.
The back is turned is a sign of non-communication. That's the message. Normally, when you're in the bed, you know the difference from the back is turned and the back is turned. And let me explain that. So sometimes the back is turned, but the back is really not turned.
Yeah.
Right.
And sometimes when the back is turned, it is
Yeah.
really turned.
It's
Yeah.
really
That makes sense.
got to know it, bro.
And so sometimes, I would lay down and I would go and her back is turned, and I know when it's not communication time. So I know I have to kind of
Yeah.
tame it down. But
Right.
but sometimes I tend to push the envelope. I'm known for that. I push the envelope a little bit because like you, I like to communicate. But any little sign I see,
Yeah. You're stepping in. You jumping in, bro.
talking, I'm just being crazy. But the point is, I get it, and that's what I like. What Debbie said. That's what makes marriage, isn't it? The uniqueness of the other and how we navigate the uniqueness of the other. I'm going to say it again. You are watching. We're with Words from the Cross Bible Study, a special edition. I'm here in studio having the time of my life. Woo! You never think COVID is going on. You never think we got some crazy stuff going on in Washington. But I'm here with relationship counselors Debbie and Eddie Smith talking about leadership and relationships. I'm hoping that you guys are just learning some things. I know I am. What about you, Lois?
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, Lois, okay, so you've heard a lot that has been said. Give me a little bit of reflection of what do you think as some of the things you have, and if one thing jumps out at you, what would it be?
I think for me, because I am a person that when there's an argument, I have to take the time to
Process.
process it and
I
just,
get it.
wait a little bit. That stood out to me because I found out that it's okay for me to want my time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my husband is not like that. He doesn't want to wait
Yeah,
when we
yeah.
have arguments. He wants to flush it out now. It doesn't matter. And it's like something. How do I say it? It's like it's such a nuisance to me to
Wow.
have to talk to you when I don't want to talk to you.
Yeah.
I don't want another word. An annoyance, I guess. So I'm happy to know that it's okay,
okay.
when I feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
That it's okay to ask him for my time.
Right.
Please give me
A little
some
time.
Mhm.
to process what has happened, so that I can talk to you. I can
Right.
reason.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
You know.
Reclaiming my time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think so. I think I learned that too, Lois. It's something I wasn't acutely like cool with, because in my mind, something happens. The devil is trying to burn the house down, and I don't want the house to burn up. And so I'm trying to save it. I'm trying to make sure that, listen, hey, let's call a truce here. And sometimes it means get in prayer or something. But I really, by talking to you guys, realize that sometimes you got to let things burn a little bit, because people must reflect. People must be able, as you said, Eddie, to let's reason together. So to get to that point, there must be some reflection. And you have to kind of minus yourself and not plus yourself
Yeah.
in the situation. Lois, where are we with time?
6:10.
Okay, we've got to go, folks. We've got to go. We've been at this for now 2 hours. We love you. Listen, I want to...
Oh, is it 2 hours?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
wow.
want to
Good
thank Debbie and Eddie Smith for coming and being with us. And by the way, I've got good news, a little bit of good news, because my understanding is, Lois, correct me if I'm wrong, they live in Jersey. No, the
Pennsylvania.
Poconos, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I guess why I mentioned Jersey, because when I came to America, that's where Eddie and I kind of reconnect, and he's very big up there, so I always associate him.
And we still go to church. in
And go to
Jersey.
church together. And by the way, folks, that quote, those songs we played, if you notice that Eddie was in both videos, so he's a part of that praise team up there in New Jersey. But I want to thank them for stopping by, and from what I know, I heard it through the grapevine. I'm not sure, but I think I heard that they're going to be relocating down here in Georgia.
Yes.
Man,
Yeah.
man, oh man.
We coming to Georgia.
Now, Georgia is going to have an empowered couple walking on its grounds. And I do believe that God is going to bless this state, because they're going to bring a wealth of knowledge. They're going to cuddle people, and they're going to help people to make it through their relational pains. A lot of people need this ministry, and that's what they do, and I'm proud to be associated with them. I'm proud to have you guys here, my wife and I. We are proud. Yo, man, I'm proud of you.
Oh.
I'm proud of you.
Thank you, brother.
I know we don't tell as black men, we do not affirm the other, but I'm so proud of him and what he has accomplished and where he is. God has really blessed him. And with a beautiful wife too, yes. I'm so, thank you for giving me permission to minister to Debbie that way, because I didn't want to, but the moment she brought that up,
Yeah.
I know I had the permission.
Yeah.
So yeah, with a beautiful wife, a beautiful couple, and I pray and wish for them all of God's success. I know they'll be joining us again to roll with us sometime again. I want them to come back. Hopefully I can entice them to come back, to let them take the set over. And I know they have some special presentations that they do together. I'm going to be begging them, harassing them, complaining to them to come and take over the program and do it their way. I think this was just an introduction with them, and I'm so glad that they're in my season this time. And they're in a season where people need them. People are shut up in their homes, bro. They want to hear this. So many relationships are struggling right now to find identity and purpose and leadership. Men like me and you, I mean, boy, it took me such a long time to kind of get it together. Thank God I had a good woman who never gave up on my leadership.
She was patient with you, huh? Yeah.
Boy,
That's it.
patient.
talk
Yeah.
about God in somebody's life. I
Yeah.
needed Jesus.
Yeah,
And I found him. And I thank God that he has blessed me with a beautiful wife too. You know, we have our issues, but I tell you what, we learn to work them out under the umbrella
Absolutely.
of God's love.
Absolutely.
And I'm proud of that. Thank you
That's
guys
right.
for watching. Thank you for joining us and let them share with you. All right, so I want them to give some departing words. Eddie, what would you say to the men out there?
Listen,
Some departing words.
listen, man. You know, God created us with an awesome responsibility. You know, especially if we take on the role of husbands and fathers. You know, we have an awesome responsibility. Do not neglect your responsibility, because when God put in His return, He's going to ask you for the flock He has given you. So therefore, you know, take on your responsibility. It's going to mean that you're going to have to put aside your ego. Ego and leadership can't live in the same house. You understand me? One is going to pay rent, and the other one is going to be authority over the other. So you have to renege the ego business, and take on leadership and understand your purpose that God has for you.
Debbie, one last departing word for our women.
Oh man, ladies, what do I want to say to you? God created you with a purpose. He has a plan for your life. We were created second in order, but not in rank. And so don't let anyone tell you that you are a second-class citizen, that you don't matter, because you do matter. Use your voice. Use your voice. Don't ever be afraid to ask for what you want, to say what you want. And always take everything to the Lord in prayer.
Amen.
Everything to the Lord in prayer. Our shortcomings, our tendencies, our need to control, take it to Him. He will show you how to handle it, how to manage it, and to become the woman, the wife. Not everyone is going to be a wife, but just to become the person that God has created you to be.
Amen.
Mercy. And with that being said, thank you guys for watching. God bless you. We love you until next week. And I'm going to ask my wife, Lois, can you close with prayer for me, please? Let us pray to close. Go ahead, sweetie.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for the time spent with you this evening and with your beautiful creations, Brother Eddie and Sister Debbie Smith. We thank you that you have created us all for a purpose and a plan. And we thank you that we are able to showcase the talents that you have given unto us. Dear God, I'm asking you to please be with each individual, each couple, each relationship, family that is being represented, those that are listening and trying to gain insights, gain some knowledge and understanding of how to navigate their relationship. May they have learned things here today that can transform their lives. We thank you for showing us your perfect plan in your word. Help us to follow what you have laid out for us so that we can have peaceful and loving relationships with our fellow men and those that we are super close to and love and cherish. So continue to be with us, watch over us, guide us, and continue to help us to live transformational lives so that others watching us can know that we have been with you. This is my prayer in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you guys for watching.
One of the things that we always
Hold on.
do, we always like to acknowledge people
Yes.
who take the time to watch us live.
Correct.
Okay.
So we don't have access to your other platforms, but on Facebook, Yvette, Tanisha, Avril, Derek, Daphne. I think that's it. Thank
Derek
you.
too? Good.
Thank you so much for watching, for your comments.
Mercy.
We appreciate it. And yeah, it's been our pleasure,
Yeah.
Caswell.
Yes.
Thank you
This
so
was
much.
good, bro. Thank you guys for watching. God bless you, and we'll see you next time.